On this show, we feature raconteur, actor, and magician Paul Abbey. And welcome everybody to Magical People. We have my very, very special guest this week, Paul Abbey. How are you this week, Paul?
I'm very good, Dr. Michael, and it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. It's a great honor.
It is an honor to have you on my show, Paul. You are an amazing person with an amazing background. You are a raconteur, an actor, magician, Tai Chi instructor, restorer, antique furniture restorer, that is. And amongst all the things you do, I want to tackle a little bit so people can understand and relate. Your background as far as what has made you. I know that there's a lot of things that bring us to the point we're at in this life, but the performance artist, if you will, because I looked at a clip which we're going to share in a few minutes of you performing, and I would not have recognized you. And I know that's what you were aiming for. You were a character. And I think that's so crucial. I think the art of magic is worthy of not just showing a trick, bing, bang, and it's done, it's gone, or even what some people do on social media where it's just, something appears and disappears and that's the whole thing. But you're more than that. And I suspect it's because of your theatrical background. Can you share with us a little bit where you're coming from, where your theatrical background is from, what it comprises, etc.?
Absolutely. It's a strange thing, actually, because I come from quite a military family, and nearly all of my family have been in the military in some respect. And my father was an RSM, Regimental Sergeant Major. So I kind of grew up in a very overly disciplined environment as I grew up as a child. And I did go along to the TA, which is a territorial army at one point, but it didn't really appeal to me. I was always keen with magic from a very, very early age. And I remember seeing TV, a very, very young boy, watching David Nixon, our top magician at the time, on TV. And I was absolutely enthralled. And my mother, because I wouldn't stop talking about what I saw on TV, she went and bought me, the classic kind of box of magic tricks, which is actually on this very shelf behind me. I've still got it from 1965, I think it was, or thereabouts. Amazing. And it's still pretty much intact, except for a couple of little tricks in there. But I never wanted to be a magician, would you believe? I really wasn't interested in doing magic as a living. I always wanted to be an actor. I was just absolutely. I was always played the fool at school. I was always the class clown, as is so called. And I think my mother was a frustrated actress. She always loved watching the Sunday matinees and going to the movies when she was a child, and was absolutely intrigued by the life of Elizabeth Taylor. So she kind of encouraged me in a small fashion. But I think probably after I got into the retail trade when I first left school, but still being a frustrated actor, I joined a part-time drama college up in London. It's called the City Literary Institute, affectionately known as the City Lit. And many years later, I ended up teaching there. So we'll talk about that later maybe. But yeah, that was my first inspiration of performance skills. And really, I learned my stagecraft. I learned how to project my voice. I'm always happiest on a stage. If you put me on a stage, I'm home. And away,
Yeah.
I go. And then
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was mentioning to somebody the other day, it could have been my wife or somebody, that's the only place where I feel at home too, is when I'm performing or on stage, if you will. And you shared with me just before we went to air a beautiful book, and I'd love you to, if you will, share that with our viewers and listeners.
Absolutely, I'd be delighted, because one of the other things I'm getting into is voice work. That's audiobooks and voiceovers. It's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I moderate my voice a little bit when I'm doing that. But this book was actually given to me by a student by the name of Dennis Preston, if he's watching. And he was a student of mine when I was teaching magic at the City Lit. And this book is called Carter Beats the Devil by Glenn David Gould. And it is actually about a chap who became a magician, and it's a thriller. The thriller incorporates lots and lots of famous names in the book, including Houdini. And if you're a magician, never read it, it's a must read. It really is very, very good. And I've been using this as an example to do some of my voice work to use as a demo.
Excellent, excellent. So exciting. And I believe, I'm sure you'll agree with me as well, that history and knowing the history of magic is just as important as performing magic, as the theatrical aspect of magic. It's so enriching to know the rich history, if you will, of magic. And collecting books such as this, or having been given books by students, or having been signed, etc., that's so important. That increases the quality of our life as well. And I'm so glad you share that with us today, Paul. I want to talk. It always seems like we never have enough time, but we're going to make the time. I want to talk a little bit about the things you've done as far as magic is concerned. And I think it was the very first time I ever saw you, perhaps the second. I know you've done the gala shows quite a few times, but the president of the International Assembly of the Society of American Magicians, of which we're both members, Anthony Darkstone, has made you the envoy for England and has made me the envoy for Canada. There's all different assembly envoys all over the world. And he also put us on the same gala show, I believe it was last August of last year, aptly titled the Gotham City Marvels. I cheated. I glanced down at my notes for those who are wondering, why do I keep glancing away? I've got cheat notes here. And you portrayed a really, really neat character. I'd forgotten this because we've done quite a few galas and shows and many other things since, but upon researching you a little bit, I thought, wouldn't it be neat to have a clip of you performing and thusly illustrate kind of where you're coming from and where you're at. So, and I understand too, that in the upcoming gala, and this is an unabashed plug for the upcoming gala. If you're watching this before June 2022, it's going to be, and I'm checking the date on this, June 11th, on wherever you're watching this, be it Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, even TikTok, all social media. The gala show will be honoring somebody very special. I'm not going to mention who it is because he's likely watching this as well. But you do a very nice toast to this person. And I thought, wow, that's class. That's really nice. And so I'm hoping our viewers and listeners out there will catch this gala in June. And Anthony Darkstone has also made me the associate producer of the show, of which I was honored to be a small part of anyway. So without further ado, I want to cut away a little bit and show this clip, and then we'll talk about the clip. So we'll do that now. Wow, wasn't that amazing? So let's chat a little bit about that clip. Now, Anthony mentioned The Wiz, and I believe that's probably the name of this character.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. It's a very strange story behind this, actually, because as I said, I wanted to start. I started out as an actor originally before I became a professional magician, and many years ago, I was involved in a production which was actually shown at the West End, London. I got involved in a theatre production up there with a singer called Sally Oldfield, the sister of oh, crikey.
It's all good.
Mr. Oldfield, I'm just going to say,
Okay.
Tubular Bells fame, and she was the star of that particular show, and I developed this character as a result of a play that I did. It was a kind of a fringe play on the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was a kind of a rewrite, and they wanted this kind of like Igor character, so that developed from there, and I stylized it. So to make it, and I've used it for many years in things like corporate events and theme events, and it's gone down particularly well. I actually used it just at the beginning of the year at an event, at a charitable event. I think I scared the bejeebers out of a load of people, which was really funny. But yeah, that character developed, and I just wanted it to be a bit hip, and I just called it the Wiz, and it's a really funny kind of crazy nuts kind of character. Doesn't normally speak, so that's where it developed, and the makeup that I use on that. I was actually helped with the cast of Cats in the West End of London. I was doing a show where they were at, and I talked about this character, and they said, "Oh, you ought to use some of this makeup," and they helped me develop it, which was
Wow.
really cool. Yeah.
I love the way you move. I love the way you move in that clip as well. Your whole posture changes into this character. You're no longer Paul Abbey, you're the Wiz, if you will. And I love the name as well, because it reminds me of that. It was on Broadway. It was probably all over the world back probably in the 60s or 70s, called The Wiz, based on The Wizard of Oz, etc. In any case, your whole posture becomes the Wiz, and you kind of not really shuffle out, but you come out there, and you're presenting a very standard magic effect for the lay people out there. The non-magicians may have just seen it for the first time, but your presentation adds so much, because you've put this whole character embodies, if you will, the effect, the props. And that's one of the things I love, because I'm looking at it as well from a staging perspective. My background as well is, and not acting so much, but I have theatrical training, etc., as well. So I can appreciate the importance. And you bring that, if you will, to the stage. You brought that to the clip. And I just love that. You've taken already a relatively baffling effect, somewhat amusing when I do it. I appeal to children. I'm a children's entertainer primarily, and have done that. Are they the Kavari sticks, or is it a different make?
They are the Kavari sticks.
I recognize them. I have those as well. I use the Kavari sticks as well. I said to my wife as we were watching that, I think he's using the Kavari sticks. She's seen me do, my stage shows and platform shows a million times. So I had to share this, and I'm so glad you gave me permission. I had to share that clip, because it really does. It epitomizes for me what magic is. And I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, or what, but your training sure shows. And I wish that everybody new and old and just beginning in magic could really embody a character. Because really, and I wrote a book about this called Developing Your Character, available on Amazon. Yes, I had to plug that shamelessly. Really, it's an extension of yourself, isn't it? Or it can be. I like to encourage people, if they do bring out a stage character, it may be one of the facets of who they are. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what I learned at drama school is you have to kind of really dive into the depths of yourself to find these things. You know, there's sometimes I remember Sean Connery was on an interview on Parkinson. I can't repeat what he said on there because it was very adult content, but I remember him saying that sometimes you have to make yourself a fool of yourself, and what he meant by that is that you have to sometimes exaggerate and really draw out what is painfully, excruciatingly embarrassing normally. And then when you pull that out and then really sell it, really kind of wring the towel out, really wring the juices out of it, you suddenly kind of go, wow, I've created something just out of kind of goofing around. And that's how it develops. It took a long time. The thing is, I think I got that character from a really good director, because there was a lady director back then at the time, it was years ago, and she kept on kind of going, I wonder if you would just kind of like do that little bit and then do this. And it was those little tiny tweaks that kind of added to it. And then when it kind of developed and it came to the point of the play, everybody was in hysterics. They just kind of go, wow, that is so cool, you know, the way it's developed. And then all I had to do was kind of take the basic outfit and stylized it and then changed it a little bit. But that walk I do is kind of really hunched over. I really procured that walk. I kind of got that. And, you know, you kind of draw the face and
Yes,
rubberise your
absolutely.
face, which I love. I just love that.
Absolutely. I love it so much as well, because also you just brought to our attention, I think it's very crucial, the importance of good direction. And if a person is lucky enough or blessed enough to have a director, or have that stage training and know about blocking and having them, the popular term now is tweaking that your show or your act. It's so important. It's not for everybody. A lot of people, it is for everybody, but a lot of people can't take direction or refuse to, or their ego gets in the way. But it's so worth it and so important. I speak to no end to a number of people that we respect. We have some mutual friends in common, and they go on and on as well about get a good director. You think you've got your show together? Show it to them. Show it to the, not so much the producer, but the director or the person that can help you bring out more emotion, more. For example, walking. I remember I had, this was a long time ago, early in my career. I was fortunate enough to have a director, and he helped tweak my movements on stage. It's pretty much who I am, that and Tai Chi as well, which we'll speak about a little bit later. But it was my wife at the time. He criticized her the most. He said, well, you're not walking like a woman. And she was just walking the way she normally would. But what he was looking for, in essence, was a little bit of an exaggeration, because we have to exaggerate a little bit our movements on stage, not only for the physical distance, but mainly for the physical distance, as opposed to if you're doing film, then the camera's right there. You've got close-ups. But your audience that witnesses a stage production doesn't have the luxury. It's a whole different medium. So you have to a little bit exaggerate your movements, but not in an odd sort of way. And that's why oftentimes a person who has a stage background, their movements won't translate well to television. It'll look a bit exaggerated. And sometimes a person who has a lot of television experience, it doesn't translate well to live performances, because essentially they're just working within a rectangle and keeping their movements within that. But I thought that was so important what you brought up, Paul, was direction. And how do you feel about that? Do you believe as well that really, if a person can afford acting lessons, staging, direction, should they get that, or should they focus just on the magic techniques at first? What do you
No,
think?
no, absolutely, without question. Any of my students, I say to them, if you want to develop this, go and do some acting classes as well. The thing is that in my particular course, I really endorse the voice work, the script work, and stagecraft, because exactly what you've just talked about, when you're on stage, you have to sort of exaggerate it a little bit, but without being pantomime, because pantomime is completely over the top. And we have to kind of find, as you know, in Tai Chi, that middle ground. So
Yes.
that middle ground is quite specific, because again, in film and TV, well, film in particular, I remember another interview by a famous star was talking about George Clooney, and I can't remember who he was working with at the time. And then his friend said, "We've got to be quiet now. They're filming." He said, "But they're not doing anything." And he said, "Bingo, that's exactly it." And the movements and the expressions were so tiny, and the stage set was so silent. He actually didn't think they were doing anything. They thought they were just waiting for the camera to wind up or the lights to come on or something. So indeed, having to learn stagecraft is vitally important. Some of the best students that I've had have already done acting or had stagecraft. I've got a couple of students of mine who've actually gone out to the big wide world and professionals now. One of them is in the SAM. I won't embarrass her with the name, but a lady who's one of our SAM members. She's very, very good, and she started as an actor, and it was easy to teach her, to be frank. I find that people have had some acting training or actors in some way, just instinctive, and that makes a huge difference. It really does. And by the way, one of the things that had to be beaten out of me is my voice, because when I was at stage school, I came from South London originally. So my teacher used to say, "You've got to get rid of that insidious little South London accent," because I used to really talk like this, I used to be like that, what I mean? And it was awful. So this is a kind of like, again, a middle ground. And when I'm acting or whether I'm doing stage stuff, and then I turn the RP up a little bit.
Yes, so crucial. We call it projection. I don't know if it's the same term in UK or not, or in England rather, but I never worry, just between you and me, when I've gone out to do shows in a row, I'd always keep a sound system in the trunk of my car anyway, just in case the venue turns out to be huger than they described. But I've never worried about not having a mic, a lapel mic or a regular mic, because I was trained to project from, I guess, the diaphragm. You can't see this on camera, but and it becomes booming, it becomes encompassing. It's sort of like when you're in the theater now to see a movie, and they've got all this special sound, and it's very booming, and you feel it, you feel the bass, etc. Well, I've always attempted to do that, so I've never panicked when I've shown up at a venue and set up and they said, "Well, no, you didn't ask for a mic. We don't have a mic." And it's like, no problem. Now, if we're talking 10,000 or more people, and depending if it's outdoors, it's trickier to project one's voice. I find anyway in outdoor settings, easier in indoor settings, but so crucial. Voice work, enunciating. You don't want to mumble, as you were suggesting. Because you're giving a show, you're presenting, you want to give, you want to share with your audiences, and pauses and all this, so crucial. I believe, and I hope you agree, makes for a better magician slash performer.
Without question. I've got to say, one of the most powerful voices I've ever heard on any stage was Charlton Heston. I had the privilege of actually seeing him and meeting him afterwards at the Ashcroft Theatre in Croydon, which is South London in England here. And that was many, many years ago. And my God, he was playing A Man for All Seasons, and he came out on the stage. And there was no, the theatre there was a medium-sized theatre, and there was no electronic acoustics or aids there. They were just using their natural voices. My God, I reeled back with the power of his voice. It was incredible, absolutely amazing. Very rarely do you hear voices like that, except for maybe Brian Blessed.
Very inspiring, very inspiring. Whenever I see a good performance by whoever it happens to be at the time, whether it's an acting performance or magic or any sort of performance art, it inspires me to be better than my best. I was discussing this with someone the other night. I think it might have been my wife. And I was saying to her, I always strive. This is because of my upbringing. I had a very disciplined upbringing as well, and I'm very grateful for that. It made me want to strive to always be first in my class at school. And, oh, I got in the 90s out of 100. I was ready to call it all quits, if you will. So I always had to do at least 100%. But I learned through a job totally unrelated to magic. They demanded of me, because I scored 100 on this particular exam, and they said, not good enough. You have to be better than that. I thought, what? Wow. So that got me working and thinking and studying again and retaking. I don't know if it was the same exam or a different exam they gave me. And I achieved that. They marked me as 105 or 110. And I knew that feeling of satisfaction. Yes, you can do better than what you think is your best. You think you're doing your best, strive for more. And that might sound a little bit hard to take, but now I strive for that. It's it's what I hope to do. I was excited that you mentioned, one of us or maybe both of us mentioned Tai Chi. As a supporter, I'll always promote Tai Chi Qigong, which actually predated, as far as I know, Tai Chi, and Gong Fu or Kung Fu. It's all meditation. It's moving meditation, but I was introduced to meditation solely a long time ago in 1989 by a Mahatma. Mahatma gave me these techniques, and I don't know where I'd be without meditation. I could never have done 4 shows in a row, traveling across the city in the central part of Canada all weekend, 4 shows on the Sunday, 20 shows or more at Christmas time, if not for pacing myself. On a very superficial level, meditation helped me to pace myself. So I'd sit in the car, drive myself to the event, sit and meditate, go in, set up, do the show, tear down, bring it back to my car, sit and meditate, drive off to the gig. So crucial for so many reasons. If people out there are not into spirituality, we won't speak in those terms, but I will speak in terms of meditation as a way of sort of pacing yourself and regaining your energy, your inner energy, if you will, be it chi or ki or prana, and then sharing that energy again with others. What's really important to me, and I outlined this in one of my books, which combined performance art with metaphysics, is Tai Chi. And even if a person studies and practices yoga, that's fine, or Tai Chi, or Qigong. Qigong, I believe, is a whole health system in itself. It's very, very ancient for those who are not familiar with it. And really, I believe I attribute my performing to that. I attribute my, I don't want to call it success, but my apparent ease, my movements, to having done Tai Chi and Qigong for many years, for more than 20 years, probably 30 years or more. And so I know that you're a Sifu, you're a teacher of Tai Chi, and I'd love for you, if you will, to share with all of us out there the importance. Don't just be a magician. It's enough to be a magician. That's fine. But if you can get acting lessons, performing techniques, but even more, because this will help you mind, body, and soul, mind, body, and spirit, if you will, Tai Chi or yoga. How do we tie that in with performing and with magic?
Oh, well, that's very interesting because I didn't go into the military, I wanted to develop myself in some form of self-discipline. So when I was at school, I was bullied a lot and I got beaten up and I got into a lot of fights. And it was only when I started studying judo at school, it built up my confidence a little bit. And then from there, over the years, got into karates and kung fu's and Tai Chi Jitsu and loads of other different things. And one of the things that was pointed out when I was at stage school was, you move well. And I didn't really attribute it to anything, except I realized it must have been obviously to do with the martial arts, because there's a lot of balance involved in it. I mean, a really silly example of this is, if you look at a lot of actors, and I've seen this, and there's a book written by a guy called David Mamet, who's a famous director, and he's always pointing out the floppy arms and the floppy hands, and actors do this because they don't know what to do with their hands and their arms. And if you look at somebody like William Shatner, who happens to be Canadian, by the way,
Yes.
he always kind of like had a stance. He was either stood side on, and he never had a problem with what to do with his hands or his arms. And that was something I must have picked up. But because we learn in martial arts economy of movement, we only move when we need to, that kind of developed as well. I actually found a lot of power by sticking my hands in my pockets, because people felt that they needed to do this all the time with their hands and being Italianate. But in actual fact, you don't need to do anything. You know,
Yes.
that classic less is more thing.
Yes.
So I realized that my balance and my movement, the way I walked across a stage, because there's another thing I noticed with other actors, they would come on. Oh, and by the way, there's a lot of method acting going on out there, I know, and I actually was pleased to know to learn the Stanislavski Method. So Stanislavski Method means that you are actually acting before you come onto the stage. So you're walking up maybe the stairs and the flies and the wings, and you're kind of going, right, I've parked my car, where did I put my keys? And oh, here's the door, and I walk in. Whereas a lot of actors, they just walk in, then they start. But I've always used that technique, and that's really helped me. And it also helps me on my movement, my general stagecraft. And if you look at some actors, particularly novices, they almost dash to the center of the stage or dash to their mark, and they almost stop like an arrow.
Yes.
And it's really weird and it looks uncomfortable. Whereas what I used to do, again, with the martial arts, with your steps and with your strikes, you know that you're making up a distance when you're throwing a punch or when you're doing a kick. I knew that was exactly 2 paces away. So I would go, I have to take 1, 2, third pace, and I'm there. So the pace in the middle is the fast one, and the 2 on either side is speed it up, fast one, slow it down, so I come to a gentle halt, and it doesn't look so uncomfortable.
Yes, excellent, excellent. That's so important. It's so important for folks out there. We can relate to that as well, but it's important to convey this. You very, very kindly offered before we went to air to share some magic, and I never force, I never encourage my guests to, I never pressure them is what I should say, to do any bits of magic. But if you're prepared, if you're ready, that would be so amazing. I don't know if you feel comfortable to share a magic illusion with us.
Sure, I'd love to. And I tell you what, the reason why, when we talked initially, just a general chat before we decided to do this, I thought, I wonder if there's something I could do which conveys how we do our magic and how we do the storytelling as an actor. Now, this is actually true. I don't do many card tricks. I really don't. I do a lot of more whimsical stuff with coins and what I call natural magic stuff around. So there's very, very few card tricks I do, but this one I absolutely love. And it was actually it was devised by a very, very good friend of mine. And anybody who's a magician will know this. But I would love to tell this as a story, as I do when I perform.
Excellent, excellent. Let's do it.
So, I'll do it as if I've just come onto the stage to do my little show. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't do many card tricks, but I'd love to share this one with you. And it's because that sometimes I'm asked to do speeches and talks for people. And I went to a college and a school, and I did this little bit of magic. And at the end of it, the younger ones in the college and the school all got together with the teacher, the performance teacher, and they made me a pack of cards, which is really, really cool. Now, hopefully that reads correctly. And it actually says, to to the magician, thank you for the show. I think they spelled the word magician wrong, but it doesn't matter. Now, I'll show you these. I was absolutely delighted and honored to have these, and I've kept them all these years as a very, very special thing. But the only reason why I show people it is because of the story behind it. It's really quite bizarre and fun. Now, with a normal pack of cards, all the cards should have a bit of uniformity to the shapes and the faces. But as you can see from these, they're a little bit abstract. That one's upside down there, but you can see it's supposed to look like a figure with a diamond and something, yes, whatever. And that one's a little bit more obvious as to what it is and what else we got there. Not sure. You have to kind of decipher that one. Bit more standard. What else we got? Yeah, we know what that one is. And some of these are a little bit abstract, as you can see from this one. Now, couldn't quite work out what was going on there. So the teacher and I went up to the little boy who drew it and I said, what's that all about? And they said, I'll just come back on holiday and that's what we saw from the beach. And I went, oh, right, you do realize it's supposed to be a playing card, don't you? So grab his pen and you just put nine of spades in there very quickly. So that was fun. So you get the general idea. They've got all these different designs. Now, with a pack of cards, as we all know, the backs are usually the same. But as you can see from these, they're a little bit different. And that's okay as well, because this is supposed to be a bit of fun, isn't it? So we don't mind. Now, can you imagine? I go off to do a very posh job, got my black tie on, got my DJ, turn up at this corporate event, and I reached into my pocket and I've pulled out the wrong cards and I've gone, oh my God, I forgot to change them over the night before. What am I going to do now? So I had to use a technique based on what they call NLP, which is a very modern science now, based on the ancients. And I thought, well, I might be able to get away with this if I can make people believe that these are real cards. So at a group of table, usually sitting at a table of 10, I picked on one person and I said to them, right, what I want you to do is remember a card. But if you're going to remember this, I want you to remember it as a proper card. So I just want you to think about what you're doing. And after a while, as I was snapping my fingers, they wondered what was going on. And they actually started to think they believed they saw a real card. Now, this was good. I thought, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? They told me, and I went, it's working, it's great. Wasn't too sure what was going on with the rest of the audience around the table. So I thought, okay, if I stick that on the front there, everybody will think that they're just seeing a real card and maybe a real pack. Now, obviously, I could do that with the one card, but I couldn't do that with the others. That wasn't going to work unless I could do something with the back. So if I did that again, what I did was I did a thing called power of suggestion. I put a suggestive word into everybody's mind and went around everybody. And after a while, they started believing they were seeing a real back as well. So I thought, real back of the back, they think they're seeing that. Real card at the front, they think they're seeing that. But obviously not the ones in the middle. Unless I can do a group hypnosis thing, unless I can make them really, really believe that they were seeing a real pack of cards. Now, that's impossible. But I carried on and I managed to get through the evening doing it. Now, can you imagine at the end of the evening, I thought to myself, oh dear, even I'm starting to believe this now. Now, I wonder what effect that's going to have if I go back to that school and I say to them, look, listen, kids, you know that pack of cards you made for me? I've kind of ruined them. And I thought, I'm going to have to sort this out. So do you know what I did? I actually took the cards one at a time and I sat up till 4 o'clock in the morning, unhypnotizing them. Yes, indeed. I had to go through every single card one at a time and I had to unhypnotize the cards. I had to do that to myself in order to make everybody else believe that they were actually seeing these kids' cards. And it's true as I'm riding this bike, I said that I would never do that again. And you know what? I never have.
I love that. I love that, Paul.
It's great fun. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Ah,
I've had a lot of fun with that. That's the shortened version. There's a longer version to that, by the way, but time constraints, I've just kept it a bit short.
it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I love that. It's entertaining. It's baffling. It's all that one would hope for in a well-crafted magic illusion, if you will. Thank you so much for sharing that one with us. That's
Oh, my pleasure.
appreciated.
We enjoyed it.
As we begin to wrap up, I want to again call to people's attention June 11th. And it's going to be actually an hour earlier on the Pacific coast of Canada. So on the Pacific coast of the US and Canada, it'll be noon, and 3 hours later in the East, and 7 hours later in the UK. So what turns out to be 12 noon in North America turns out to be about 7 p.m., I believe, in UK. The gala show. And Anthony Darkstone, the president of our International Assembly of the Society of American Magicians, has worked so hard on this. I know because I've assisted him to some degree as associate producer, and I was privy to see you, Paul, do your toast. So if people want to see Paul's very brief toast to someone, and it will be revealed who it is if you watch that show on June 11th. Also, you can also look at archives and actually I'm trying to remember where on some of the Facebook pages they can go back and see some of the gala shows you've been in. In particular, they saw a clip this time round of the August 2021 one. But wherever you can, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is study Paul Abbey's attitude, his movements. It's so important in the world of magic where sometimes things can get lost. Sometimes all that's important, and I see that happening, and I want to shift that consciousness, if you will, to just, a video of someone going, boom, it's gone, to storytelling, much like what you did. It has a rhyme and a middle, a beginning, an end to it. It makes sense as far as structure and everything, and timing and all of that. So I want everyone out there, if they can, to study you, to see how you move and how you speak, and not to copy you, but to be inspired, maybe get some sort of teacher or teachers to tutor them and maybe get direction as well. Let's say folks want to contact you, Paul. Is there any way they can?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Either via Facebook or my email address, which is Paul Abbey, all one word, .thewiz, THEWIZ, at virgin.net. So everybody knows me as my nickname, Wiz or the Wiz. So all my magical colleagues know me as that. So easy to remember.
Excellent.
Can I just add this? Something very funny about that, about my toast. My kind of like my little signature thing now is with a martini glass, and there is it's a very funny thing because when I go out and I do my Facebook posts, I'm always talking about I've gone to a restaurant or a cafe and I've got my pint of vodka. And so the martini glass is supposed to be my vodka martini, and the real joke about this, I'm actually teetotal. So I do have the occasional drink and that, but I did buy a bottle of martini once, and it lasted nearly 2 years.
I love that. I love that.
Water.
Once again, I want to thank you, Paul Abbey, for joining us this day. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a great honor. Thank you so much for asking me. I really enjoy this sort of thing.
And I as well, a great honor having you on. And I want to thank my audience out there, especially for tuning in this day. And we'll see you all again really soon.